Hello everyone, welcome to SL Day's Careers event. SL Day is a day to commemorate Stephen's legacy, but today we will be focusing on careers. This event is to show you how to fast track their career ambitions for the future. We have a variety of speakers today from different industries, which I'm so excited to hear from today, who will be sharing about their journeys, their wins and their lessons. A bit of housekeeping just before we get started. We're not expecting a fire today, so if there is, please follow the fire signs in the room. Also, in terms of the restrooms, is to the left and the right through the exit at the back. We are streaming live today. We do have an online audience, so if you do need to use the restroom, please lay low because there's cameras watching, and sneak through the back. So without further ado, I want to pass on to our first speaker, Martin. I'll let you introduce yourself because I'm sure you have a wealth of experience to share with us. So please welcome to the stage, Martin.
Hi, can you hear me okay? My name is Martin Griffiths. I'm a consultant in trauma surgery, and I'm also the National Clinical Director for Harm Reduction, which is basically we've got a lead in NHS and understanding how we support communities affected by violence and reduce that in the community. It's something I've been working with from my career. I'm a South Londoner, I can help by the accent. I grew up in Lewisham and Brockley, Deptford, that kind of area. I used to walk down here as a kid because it was free. And I could see black faces doing useful things in the pictures and statues as well. So, yeah, I'm a doctor. I trained as a doctor, and I got, like all people in medical school, got a string of A-levels and stars and stuff, and did my medical training and did my postgraduate diplomas and spent normally about 10, 15 years post sixth form, post A-levels in your 6-year medical school degree, plus another 10, 15 years of training towards consultancy, getting your black belt in surgery, and then on we go from there. And I think that long journey was really interesting because I started in a sixth form in Crofton Park. 40% black people, brown people, off from my kind of background. So my mum and my sister in a little council flat, very happy with that life, in a very strong Jamaican identified community in that area. Very proud of my heritage, very proud of who I was. But in that space, yeah, I go to uni, like going to Mars. Actually, it'd be better going to Mars. I've understood Mars better because I went to a place with 105 people per year in a quadrangle by the Barbican, all right? I was the only black person in my college, let alone my year. And it was, this is a long time ago, obviously, sort of like 10% state school educated, everybody else was public school. 25% female, this is obviously a long time ago. And as I said before, diversity wasn't really an issue. It was kind of like not a dirty word, it was a funny thing. And it was the thing about being there was it was about acclimating to a new environment. I'd been in sixth form with my friends doing what were kind of lazy, doing quite well, and landing in a different place where people were very, very confident, very, very knowledgeable, and very full of themselves, and very difficult. And I wasn't understood, I didn't understand. A lot of assumption in that space. People think they know bits about you, and they fill in the gaps, makes them feel comfortable. And that assumption is really dangerous because you aren't understood, and importantly, you don't understand either. So part of that journey, okay, is recognizing that you are on a journey of understanding, and you need to understand yourself and other people. People get caught up about this thing around, I'm here despite my background. You're here because of your background, and you need to be very careful that you're anchored in that space. You are proud of who you are. You have integrity and authenticity. I come back to that again. Integrity and authenticity. And you're on a learning journey, learning about what you want to do, the process, the practicalities, how you interact with people, but more importantly about yourself. And I only ever asked 2 questions in my life. Why? And so what? If you give me an information piece about myself, you can't do, this is so-and-so, this is because that's the reason, I say, why? Why can't I do that? Why is it this way? Why can't we sort things out? said to me, Martin, well, you can't play rugby because you're too slow. I said, well, so what? I can do it. I can do it. And I think the thing about individuals like myself who had a lot of insecurity coming from this weird sort of like not very posh, very educated background, being the first person in my family to go to university, was a concern about me not being good enough. Imposter syndrome? Imposter syndrome? Yeah, well, I don't know about imposter syndrome, just like I don't think I fitted in, really. And I didn't feel understood, and that felt a negative feeling in my sense. However, two behaviours. One, to see the positive in every interaction, to learn from everything, even with bad things. What's the good in there? Every negative comment has a kernel of truth in it. Everything I see, I can learn from. Every bit of help, every bit of criticism I get is not so much criticism, it's coaching. Usain Bolt's got a coach. Why is that? So he can run faster, isn't it? All talent in the world, all the thing around him, he has a coach to help him get better at what he does. And attitude is really important. It doesn't cost any brain power to be there on time, to be positive, to be enthusiastic, to learn from your mistakes, to ask for feedback, to be part of the conversation and to engage with processes. Yeah? And the learning journey, okay, will always end up in a good place. And if it's not good, you're not there yet. So you have to keep on swimming, but remember, you are who you are, and integrity and authenticity is the key to being happy in your own skin. You cannot be successful if you live two lives. Or people tell you to fit in. You've got to be a certain way to get through this barrier. You've got a certain way, sound a certain way, do a sort of thing, and assimilate. I interview medical schools and I interview people all the time. It doesn't work. If you're faking it, I can see it a mile off. You can all see it wrong, can't you? But we want to employ, train, support a community that is curious, knowledgeable, and empowered. And that means you have to know yourself. Why am I here? Why do I care about this? Why am I doing this rather than the other? And so what if I don't fit the ticket? I can do all of these things because I've got the skill set and the aptitude and enthusiasm. Now look, I've been on a long and winding career initially as a vascular surgeon, then a trauma surgeon, now working in a big trauma centre, the biggest trauma centre in the country, and I led and trained thousands of surgeons. I work in South Sudan, I'm off to Ukraine next month, doing stuff there to teach people how to do their jobs better, worse, differently, yeah? And that knowledge, that thirst to learn more and teach more, understand more, is infectious, and it's fun, and it's a great place to be. But you have to want to know more about yourself, about how you interact with people, and to be understood and to understand other things. And I think that being humble about not knowing those things makes it much easier to be relatable, and you have to be relatable, and you have to have integrity, because you are who you are, and you shouldn't want to change that, because you're perfect as you are, and your circumstances have helped you grow in that, and you mustn't lose sight of who you are and where you're from, because if you start doing that, you start living two lives, and you are no longer functioning in that space. It sounds ridiculous when you're on your own and you've fallen over, and no one's picking you up and you're lamenting your circumstances. Lamentation is the poison to career advancement. Think, why am I here? So what if I said that about me? And understand that criticism can be coaching. Second thing is about allyship. We talk a lot about people saying you've got to look and sound like me to be representation. Representation is very important, and it is. But unfortunately, allies don't come perfect out of the box. The person who puts their hand out to help you might say an awkward phrase, like might confuse someone with their sister rather than their aunt. It's a very embarrassing thing to do. They might say things, they might not look and sound like you or use a different kind of accent. However, we want to help each other do better things. And the imperfect ally is the ally you're going to have, because the person you want to be like, it's not what you want to be. You don't want to be somebody else, do you? You don't want to be a clone or a bad replica. You want to be yourself in that space. So you have to recognize and see everybody you see, everything you see. Can I take the positives from that, analyze the rest, and just go, that doesn't fit with me? Because I have to be a better version of me in my career. Yeah? So when I look at people I'm trying to promote, advance, support, train, weed in, weed out,
and guide. What do I look for in individuals? Obviously, there's talent, but there's got to be enthusiasm and a willingness to learn and be open to new information. That curiosity is really important. Secondly, is there a whole human being there? Is there a home life? Is there recognition of self? Is there a pride in what is going on with there? And if that's not there, how can we support that understanding of who and why I am and why we are? Because you can't live half a life. And if you want to be the person you want to be, it's got to be part of your integral society and part of your integral thing. Because you can't go home, having lived one life, one place, and go home and try and live it the other way. Because you just sound like a fool. And you fall between two stools, don't you? You're not really being yourself. And that integrity is very important. Because you have to be home and at work. If you're different people, you're nobody. And you cannot allow yourself to fall into that space to be a facsimile, a faker, when what's inside you is so unique and so beautiful and so powerful. So for me, we'll look about careers. What drove me from being a surgeon to being an advanced production lead was a desire to know more, understand more, and support more people. And I've saved more lives with my laptop than I have with my knife. So I think so. Because I was keen to learn more about that sort of work. And that's helped me move things forward. But it's always in that place of humility, understanding, willingness to share, curious, and to learn more about people and things. As I said before, integrity, authenticity, okay, and enjoying the journey. If it isn't good now, not at the end. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Martin. A few points that I got from that talk. So why and so what, which I think is so important. Having positivity, an attitude, enthusiasm, knowing yourself, being human, being authentic. These are all key words that we should think about on our journeys within career and from a personal perspective. So thank you so much for that. Next, we have Sarah. It's special having Sarah here because if you don't know, Stephen Lawrence wanted to be an architect. So we're blessed to have you here. Thank you so much. And please welcome Sarah.
Thank you very much for having me. It is a great honour to be here. So I'm going to fiddle with my phone for a moment. So I'm Sarah Akibogan. I'm an architect, I'm a filmmaker, and I'm a founder of the thing called the XXAOC project, Female Architects of Colour. And I'll tell you more about why I started that as we go along. So, intro's out of the way. As I say, I'm delighted and honoured to be here because of the significance of the day, Stephen Lawrence Day. You will know, as Mari has just told us, that Stephen wanted to be an architect. And of course, his journey was cut tragically short. And you will also know about the tireless work of his parents. And I'm a huge, I've endless admiration for Doreen Lawrence and the work that she and Neville have done over the years. I feel incredibly lucky to be able to stand here and say that I'm an architect. There is some of my work on the wall behind us, and it's just going to sort of sit there as a kind of accompaniment to what I'm saying, but not directly relate to it. But there's a little bit of my journey up there. So I am the daughter of West African parents. I can relate a lot to what Martin has just told us about kind of authenticity and sort of respecting where you've come from and that being very precious. My parents are very precious to me, and they've given me so much. They emigrated from West Africa, lived just outside London, and met here in this city. So I consider it my home. I'm a North Londoner. I am from Hackney, and I went to school there. And But I had, let's say, a very mixed journey to this point. My parents, as I say, are wonderful people. My mother was a nurse and a midwife, but she also has schizophrenia. And she developed that as a very young woman in her late 20s, just after having me. And I mention it because there's a lot of stigma around that, especially in our communities. She is still a wonderful person. And I think a lot of my strength and resilience, which is something I'm going to talk about, comes from her and the experience of having a parent who was, going through such trauma. But my journey was impacted because schizophrenia is a brutal thing. And it meant that my parents split when I was about 16. This is just after my GCSEs, so it impacted my my trajectory, let's say. So I didn't have a straightforward journey, and I think that's important. I interrupted my A-levels. Up until then, funnily enough, I had wanted to be a doctor. I was going to go to Oxbridge. I didn't know which of the two, but that was my plan. And then I detoured, and it's in that space that I discovered art. There's some of my early artwork up there on the wall. And that's important because architecture, if you speak to architects, they will tell you that it's kind of a fusion of creativity, art, science, and maths. And so somehow through this, through the particularities of my own life, I was sort of thrown towards making more art, and it was kind of my space of refuge. I was in my early 20s before I went to university, but I spent that time doing my A-levels very slowly. I did get them, about 4, but not brilliant A-levels, but I got them. And I also created this portfolio of artwork, which is what got me into architecture school. And I was offered a place in the interview eventually. So I did that. I went to university, and they were, I won't say they're the best years of my life, because, I hope that there are great years still to come. But it was a wonderful time, and I would encourage anyone to do it. I made some of my best friends there. I'm still very close friends with a lot of people that I went to university with. And I think what's critical about university as well is that it opens up a new space for young people. And yes, you have to be authentic and bring everything from your own kind of past and culture with you, but it's also an opportunity to develop a new you, it's a space to grow, and I think that that's really important, and that's something that I hugely value from my time at university. So I had wanted to go to a red brick university. I went to Westminster, and there, in the end, I went to Westminster. And I studied a thing called architectural engineering. I was offered a place on both courses, and I chose architectural engineering because I thought that that would be a kind of great fusion of my interests, maths and science, as I've said. And then after that, I went to another school. So architecture is structured in 3 parts. Part 1 is your degree, and then you do these kind of you do your sort of postgraduate diplomas and so on, blah, blah. But then I went to a very kind of elite school for my postgrad. And I did that. I think I may have been trying to kind of, punish myself for not getting into Cambridge. I don't think so. But I think I did recognize the importance of going to what's kind of seen as a good school. And I've lots more to say about what I think about that, the kind of, the sort of hierarchies and snobberies that exist. But at that time, it was important to me. And it's probably had a big effect on my career. I worked really hard to make that transition. When I left Westminster, although I was taught by wonderful people, there was still quite a gap between where I was and where I wanted to be. So I had to work really hard and kind of really dig in to transition into a school like that. I went to a place called the Architectural Association, who are amazing. These days, I think they give something called the Stephen Lawrence Scholarship. I could be wrong about that. Apologies. I know people are listening at home. But it's an incredible place, and it's educated some of the world's best architects, people like Zaha Hadid, Richard Rogers. These people went there. And I did literally pinch myself on day one that I couldn't believe I was there. So that was wonderful. It was wonderful to get there. However, it was difficult. Martin talked about not being understood, about sometimes you may or may not have said this, but not being heard. And I had to repeat some time there. And, that was very difficult. I remember feeling annoyed and bruised, why is this happening to me? I'm sure that I kind of get this as much as anyone else. And it was probably a mixture of things. I'm probably right about some of that. But there was possibly also, there would have been a kind of expectation gap, all sorts of things. It's complex, let's say. But at that time, as I say, I was probably pretty annoyed, younger me. But again, I had to kind of dig in and find a sort of resilience. It's a private school, right? It was costing me to be there. So repeating a year meant pounds, let's just say. However, I did that, obviously, with the support of my family. I was able to graduate from that school. And doing so has meant that I've, been able to continue my career. I've worked at what would be considered some of the top practices in the UK. I went on to work for Norman Foster, for Will Alsop, who most of you won't have heard of. But Norman Foster you'll possibly know because of the Gherkin. You'll possibly know that building. Nothing to do with me. But it's kind of quite well known. So I did that, and then I suppose the other challenge about architecture is, let's be honest, there aren't very many people that look like me, that look like us in this industry, and it's probably the same for most professions. I think architecture is slightly worse than, let's say, medicine or law, because it's a creative profession. You don't earn as much as you do in some other professions. So what that means is, all of those things are barriers for people. So therefore, there is an issue with representation. And I think this is very important. I think that the thing about architecture and, what it does, if you think about it as an architect, you're part of a group of professions that are creating the environment that people live in. You're creating spaces. You get to make wonderful buildings like this one that we are in. But you create people's homes, people's schools, people's galleries, places where people hang out, places where people get married, places where people make their memories. So it's a really important thing, I think, and it's integral to our everyday lives. And to me, that means that it needs to be an industry, a profession that represents the people that it's creating spaces for. So representation is important. That's a long conversation. It's not that one sort of person can't design for another sort of person. It's that we need a kind of multiplicity of voices to create the spaces that we live in. So representation is really important to me. But when I worked at Foster & Partners, and this is, this was a long time ago. It's probably a decade or so ago. And this is typical of lots of practices, especially the bigger ones, especially the sort of top ones. But I was the only black woman there. And there are hundreds, maybe they employ 1,000 architects at that time. And they weren't all working in that office. But I was the only one until I was joined by a friend, another black woman. And, we inevitably ended up sort of hanging out together. But my response to that situation, and I will wrap up, my response to that situation has been to campaign and to get involved in advocacy. This is why I started the Female Architects of Colour project. I mentioned that I'm also a filmmaker. That comes from my architecture training, which was quite art-based. So I make films about architecture. A few years ago, made a film called She Draws, She Builds, which is about women's experiences of being architects, and I'm now making one about female architects of colour and their experiences of being architects. And so last couple of things I'll say. So why should you think about architecture? Well, because of everything I've said, because it's about creating spaces. It's about creating the spaces that we will inhabit in the future. And it needs people like you, people like, it needs all of us. So, yeah, I think it's a wonderful profession. It's a tough one, but it's worth it. And what's really important, I think, is that if you can bring, so what I've managed to do with the filmmaking and been lucky enough to do is to bring an interest that I'm really passionate about to the conversation about architecture. And it is really important to bring your own interests, your own USP, if you like, into professions like this. And I've been able to travel. I also teach. So it's quite a rich existence. So I encourage you to think about it. So thank you very much for your time, and it's been a pleasure to speak.
Thank you, Sarah. That was lovely to hear about your journey. Things that I picked up. Sorry, I'm going to talk about what I picked up from all the talks. But for me, I love your story about resilience. I love your story about bringing two creative elements together. So campaigning for women of colour in architecture, as well as being a filmmaker, you're bringing two of these creative elements together. I think that's amazing. And I never thought of architecture as spaces for people. I always think about buildings. So the fact that you brought up that this is actually spaces for people to just hang out, when I think of now like the Strand and where they have places for, or like gardens, like these are all creative thoughts. So yeah, thank you for that. The next on our speaker list is Joe. So I'll let him introduce himself.
Hi guys, I'm Joseph Kamara, and I am a global sales director for a company called Visa, my old company, for a company called Ernie. So basically, I'll start with my journey. My mum came here as an immigrant, and she overstayed her welcome, unfortunately. So she got deported. And in doing so, it meant that I ended up in foster care for a little while. I think it was the first 10 years of my life, and I lived in Yorkshire. And if anyone knows Yorkshire, it's a very sort of like predominantly white area. I think I was the only black child in my school and around my neighborhood. So anytime I was causing trouble, people knew it was me and knew who to go to. So I lived there for the first 10 years of my life. And it was very difficult because I had a lot of unanswered questions. Why did I look different to everybody else? I never knew. I didn't really see it until other children used to sort of tease me about it. So it was quite difficult initially. And yeah, for the first 10 years, that was a difficult part of my life. I'd moved around quite a lot. And then what I was quite fortunate enough was my auntie found my foster family, got in touch with me, and basically adopted me and moved me to like Lewisham, Catford area, if anyone is familiar with South East London. Moved in and I went to school here, and I made some friends quite quickly, but I was quite a naughty child initially, just because I think of the lifestyle I was used to. I was used to being the typical class clown and always making everyone else laugh. I had to be the one in front of everybody and, just showing off and whatnot. So that was the first part of my journey. However, I did then go to a school in South East London, which was called Mallory. I now believe it's called Haberdasher Aske's Knights Academy. It was quite a rough school when I went. If anyone is familiar with that school, the pass rate wasn't good. Most kids that went there they were assuming you'd end up in either jail or you'd be out doing something illegal, essentially. But I thought, I'm going to kind of break the mold. So when I finished from when I finished my GCSEs, I went to Bromley College and I studied engineering initially, mechanical engineering, and I generally didn't know what I wanted to do. And my family, we are a council family, single parent household, but my auntie did everything she could for us. She worked tirelessly to make sure she was providing for her 2 children as well as myself and putting clothes on our backs. And she did amazing. So when I turned 16, I just wanted to work and wanted to bring money into the house. So I grabbed a job in any job I could, which was I worked in Sainsbury's, and I worked nights, I worked days, I worked tirelessly just to help bring any sort of money into the household. And I was going to college during the day, so I'd sometimes do nights, go home, have maybe a quick nap, and then I was out to college in Bromley, sort of 3 to 4 days a week. I then met a friend who said, look, you're working all these hours in sort of retail. I work for a kitchen company, we sell kitchens. And I was like, please get me a job there. So luckily I then got into designing kitchens, and that was my first taster into sort of a sales role, in which I realized that was kind of my forte. I was quite good at talking and being able to convince people and persuade people to purchase things that they're going to live with for the rest of their lives. Kitchens, bedrooms, bathrooms, that type of thing. And actually to sit there and have the ability to design what someone's going to actually live with. So I was very similar to yourself. So I wanted to be an architect from young, but I didn't believe I had the ability to do it. So well done to yourself. But I always wanted to be an architect. So even to do a small element of something I've always wanted to do was great for me. And it was just being able to go and build those and watch that be built was phenomenal. So that was my first sales job. I then finished my not bachelor's, it was my diploma in mechanical engineering. I realized I don't actually want to be an engineer. It's not for me. Last minute, I got into Brunel. I got into some really good universities for engineering, but I said, I'm going to turn all of these down, and I'm going to try my luck, and I'm going to go through clearing, because Brunel was probably the best choice I had. And they said to me, we're not going to accept you for what you want to do, which was I wanted to go and study business because you've done a diploma in engineering. So I said, okay, all right, I'm going to have to go through clearing. And I got into a university in Canterbury in Kent to study business and marketing. And I did that probably within the last few days of clearing closing. So I was thanking my lucky stars. Luckily, we then went and did that. And I did okay. I had to retake a year just because going to uni was an interesting experience for me. It's a new world, and I wasn't used to it, and I wasn't prepared for it, I don't think. So I had to retake a year. Again, it was all about still going and continuing, because a lot of people dropped out and sort of just never continued. But I said, no, I'm gonna retake a year. I didn't do as good as I should have. I retook a year, and then as I've left, I then fell back into sales, and I was selling sort of immigration services, which was sort of a funny scenario considering what happened when I was young. So I was selling immigration services to people to help them maintain their life in the UK, move to Canada, or go to Australia and have a better life for them and their family. In which I then started to move up quite quickly, and I became a team leader, and then I became a sales manager, managing a team of maybe 20 members of staff. And like Martin said, in that role, I felt like I had that imposter syndrome. I always felt like, what am I doing here? How did I get here? I was doing sales meetings and telling people we need 5 million for the end of year, and I'm sitting here not really understanding, how I've got here, but somehow I've done it. And one thing I was going to say is I've kept a good circle of friends from my childhood. So then when I moved on, I ended up linking up with a few of my childhood friends again, and lo and behold, we're all in the top ends of our career. I'm now a sort of head of sales. My friend who finished Cambridge University went and became an economist and turned a company into £1 million company. My friend was an IT specialist working for New York Stock Exchange, and one of my friends is a customer service or customer success manager. So we're all at the top of our fields, and throughout that, that's when our business was made. Because of our friend who went to Cambridge, he basically had created a software that allowed him to analyze someone's business, whether it be, you know, a retail store or a, you know, gym, and basically analyze their data and tell them if they do X amount of, you know, extra sales, it will generate that much, you know, incremental growth in their business. And it allows them to give actionable insights into what the business does. Something that he used to do for a business at a considerably high amount of money. But he's now created that software which allows him to sell the software and get people to do it inside the business without the need of paying him hundreds of thousands of pounds at a much cheaper rate. He's a developer. He's the genius behind the software. What he then needed was some brains and some sales ability to bring that to market, in which he approached all of us and we said, look, why don't we all jump together? We're all experts in our own fields. I'm sales, you're the creator, you're after sales, and you're IT. In which we said, look, brilliant, let's do it. We then took 25% of the business and we jumped in, and our first client was a FTSE 100 company, which was William Hill. That was our first client. Since then, the business has grown at an exponential rate, where we're now in touch with companies like Burberry, we're in touch with insurance companies, and the company is growing at a rate of that I'm just so pleased with. And do you know what it was? It was all off the back of me maintaining good friends and you know, never giving up. And despite always wanting to do better and never believing that I was good enough to do what, you know, what people had probably written me off to do based on, you know, my background. I've been fostered, based on the school that I went to, all various things that I'd, you know, gone through life. I probably wouldn't be, you know, someone that should be up here based on that, but I wanted to break the mold and prove everybody wrong, really. And I'd like to say that I've done that, and yeah, I am really appreciative that I've been able to speak to you guys today. And yeah, just thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe. I'm sure everyone's ready for my key points by now. But so for me, love that you made it against all odds, especially moving environments. I think it echoes what Martin was saying earlier about a journey ends up in a good place. And I think you're definitely in a good place now to go through selling kitchens, to being global sales director, to now in a startup that's in tech, which is, we know that is a booming market. And having the good friends. You talked about networking and having this circle of friends that are all at the top of their game, and now you're all working together in a business. So really love that. Our next speaker is Freddie, my colleague. So yes, please welcome Freddie.
Thank you, Maureen. Thank you all for coming, and everyone listening at home. So what do? I do a few different things. But what I'll speak on more than anything today, I think I'd like to give a few key takeaways. So just very quick, in terms of background, I came to the UK at the age of 6, a single-parent household with my mother, who always made us feel like we were very wealthy and very well off. First place I came to in the UK was actually Lewisham, which surprised the life out of me because I expected the UK to look like Buckingham Palace, but there you go. So growing up sort of in that area was quite eye-opening and quite different for me. However, nonetheless, there was a huge push always at home for education, for achievement in whatever it may be. You know, it was almost second nature to us when we first came to the UK to sort of travel a few miles on your own at the age of 8 to get to school and be back and complete your homework and do all of the chores to a very high standard sort of before mum was home. And it was only up until I got slightly older and sort of spoke to some of my peers in school and realised, hold on a minute, I'm getting a bit of a bad deal here at my household, but there wasn't much negotiation at home anyway, so there wasn't anything happening that way. The point here is, I think the thing that helped me quite a lot, and I only realised as I got older, was the responsibility and the expectations that there were for me from a very young age. Is something that I then took onto my career and into my personal life, and it's high expectations. So I have that of all of the teams that I manage, of myself, at times when I'm feeling tired or at times when I'm feeling like, you know what, I can do this tomorrow. You know, I kind of almost associate those sort of things with, look, there's someone out there who isn't giving up right now, whatever, despite it just being, whatever it may be. But the point is, high expectation, I think, is a really key takeaway for any young person, regardless of the field you're getting into. It's quite key. So from that, I went to local secondary school, went to college, sixth form, done pretty decent, got into university, studied accounting, dabbled in the accounting field, but wasn't really something that I enjoyed particularly much. And very quickly after university, just got into education, which in the first instance was a bit of a stumble, really, just because I just did not want to get into accounting, and really just started my career in education. And very quickly got into management within education, and that's where I realized that, I enjoyed work and I really flourished. And it was from that same mantra from a young age of setting high standards where it really sort of changed things. So I've worked for a few different academy chains, and the key thing was there at each stage was going to schools and realizing that despite it being something that was sort of heavily monitored and heavily looked into, education, there's a big oversight in knowing that we're actually serving a group of young people or serving an audience, so to speak, and there wasn't a high expectation of delivering a service, if you will. And there was a lot of, how can I say this at the beginning of my career, entitlement, I would say, from some of the schools and institutes I was working within. But that was quickly one of the main things that we sort of brought in and sort of raised the standards, deal with high expectations, et cetera. But that comes with a lot of things that we've heard today. So, just Sarah mentioned you had to be extremely resilient at different parts of your career for whatever reason it may be. Or I think Joe mentioned always pushing on and working hard. And a lot of these characteristics come into play, but none of this sort of will come into play without having sort of integrity, without having, sort of being true to yourself, which Martin touched on quite a bit, because I learned that quite late on, actually. And for me, there was a lot of not knowing if I did fit in, and tried to make myself fit in the wrong sort of ways. But you very quickly learn that it does take for you to be honest with yourself, et cetera. Something that I found that was quite useful for a lot of the young people that I've worked with, and something that has a lot of great legs in the current sort of climate in various career fields, are apprenticeships. And apprenticeships do really vary from all sorts of ages. So from 16 plus, you can get an apprenticeship at various levels. We've put on thousands and thousands of young people into various apprenticeships, which have taken them on to be sort of industry leaders in certain places, sit with peers who have spent quite a lot of time in various positions in education to get to where they've got to. But of course, it goes without saying, university has a great place, and in certain industries, it's irreplaceable completely. But a message I really want to push out there is a place for apprenticeships. So whatever field it is that you do want to get into, do look into what is available, sort of the requirements of that to get into an apprenticeship within that field, and definitely reach out to a lot of employers. A lot of things that employers share with us a lot of the time is that they want the interaction from young people. They kind of pursue it in their own way, and the message I can just give back to them is, I couldn't tell you how many times I've heard a young person say, I don't know who to speak to or where to reach out to or whatever, but please do reach out to these different employers and educational institutes who will share a lot of that knowledge and know-how with you. And some of the greatest stories that I've heard of young people getting into apprenticeships are just firing off an email initially, a year or two before they're even at that stage, and sort of touching base and just having an email exchange with somebody which has inspired them to get into that field, or popping into an office or a place of work and just having a 20-minute walk around and a chat with somebody, which really opened up their eyes into that field. So, that's definitely a huge thing I'd like to push out there, and just give that as a message to anybody. Just do obviously think about what you want to do, but reach out to employers, places of education, and find out as much as you can, because research is always a great thing, and it may also tell you that this isn't what you expected it to be. It might not be for you, and it would save you a lot of time, as opposed to sort of getting yourself into something and then realizing it wasn't for you, which happened to me with accounting, to be honest. But nonetheless, I say a lot of research, very high expectations at all times, and regardless whatever it is you do, even in your personal life, just always have the highest expectations, and keep striving through alongside a lot of the other messages we've heard today. And that's really it from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Freddie. So, love the mantra of having high expectations and standards from a young age, because that has set you up and to see you through your career. And you touch upon apprenticeships, which is obviously a different way to get into work. And I love the idea of young people finding out how, like, just experiment and finding out how these jobs work and if it is actually for you and going to be a part of your lifestyle. So that's a nice segue onto Sam. I feel like this is the best segue, so I'm going to let you introduce what you do.
Introduction.
Okay.
Oh. Should I use?
Okay, so my name's Samuel Panda, and I'm the co-founder of Levels. And Levels is all about empowering you to build your Strive style. So first thing is I'm going to show you a video which describes Level, and then I'm going to go into more detail on what Levels is about. Why work when you can strive? Striving takes your work and makes it a mission, an achievement, a daily practice that elevates you and those around you. And the style in which you strive brings innovation, creativity, a unique perspective that makes a difference in an expanding world. Do you strive for independence? Do you strive to create? Levels is the place to find opportunities, from gig to traditional to entrepreneurship. Strive to live your passions. Strive to walk your way. Strive to level up. Levels gives you the freedom to express yourself and showcase it to the world. So tell me, what's your Strive style? Okay, so hope you enjoyed the video. So I'll go into more depth in terms of what a Strive style is. So basically, everybody's different. We all have our different desires, we all have our different needs, we all have our different goals. And how we strive to achieve this is unique to you. At Levels, we provide you, let me click through. Okay. At Levels, we provide you with the tools to help you grow, learn, and explore career paths you could take based on your Strive style. At Levels, our mission is to empower you to develop your Strive style through a number of career opportunities. Our vision is to help you break out without limitations and excel. So what does this mean? It means Levels is there to provide you with a community where you can aspire to start your career and be introduced to a multitude of established connections in your desired career path. Stand out. At Levels, we want you to stand out. We want you to be you and walk in your way, whatever you do. So we have developed the Levels platform, which allows you to network, collaborate, find opportunities, and experience social peer-to-peer interactions with like-minded individuals. You can share projects you're working on, creative ideas, insights, collaborative opportunities. This is where you can shine. So, through Levels, we want to give organizations the opportunity to shout about all the great work that they do for young people and attract you to a variety of great opportunities that they offer. So for example, like Stephen Lawrence Day Foundation or Adidas or Ralph Lauren or CC Foundation or Huey Hutchinson. So you can match your Strive style with them. So Levels is that platform that would link you to a multitude of opportunities. So Levels there's 4 areas which I want to focus on now, which is on the screen. The slides was a bit messed up a bit, but we're on the right slide now. So, we want you to walk your way. You do and discover, you do you, and discover how to showcase yourself to the world. We want you to personalize your experience that matches your work needs with the needs of your prospective employers. We want you to be able to try your passions, because passion rules. How it is experienced can evolve. You might think today you want to be a gig worker and try it for 6 months, or maybe an engineer is your career choice, and then you decide, it's not for you. We want you to evolve and find a career path that really drives you, because when you're full of passion, both you and your employer will benefit. We want you to express your world. And what this means is expressing your world is just as important as creating it. Through Levels, we want to share your experience, tell your friends, talk about the likes and dislikes. You can provide each other with tips, suggestions on interviews, or when finding something you love, you want to shout about it and tell everybody. And finally, you can share your knowledge and wisdom with the Levels community. But most importantly, we want you to build your Strive style in doing so, because striving is being the best you can be, which is the real work. This lifetime is about striving. It's not about just earning money, but hey, we all love money. It's about being able to share your gifts and your talents and shine your light in the most dynamic and effective way. And in order for you to do this, we have made sure that organizations on the Levels platform are also demonstrating this to you. We are working with corporate, career, and gig partners to help show you how you can strive and build that Strive style. We want to be able to have training and mentorship access, because there's so many people that have strived before, and we can learn a lot from them. So you can ask them questions about their careers and experiences and figure out what works for you. And there is no other platform like Levels that easily gives you access to people from different sectors and backgrounds. So this is the official launch of Levels, which I'm excited about. With your support, let's grow and evolve it together. Levels is your community. Spread the word. So you can sign up today, and we've got some freebies, stickers, T-shirts, badges, and so forth after. So that's the end of my presentation. But I also wanted to give a little background about myself. So I've always loved being creative, but I've also loved problem solving. So one thing I would advise is find out what you're good at, what you enjoy. And with that, you'll be able to find which path may work for you. But what I feel is that the opportunities that are available is what's going to help you decide. So if you've got enough opportunities and enough guidance and experience around to help you, you'll be able to make the right decisions. I hope this helps. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Great presentation on Levels. There's a QR code for our guests at home to scan, and for everyone in the room here to scan to sign up. Let's support. I love seeing another entrepreneur in the household. what's your strive style? Love the tagline. I'm like, oh, what would be my strive style if I was 16? So, okay, cool. So this segment is Q&A, if anyone has some in the room. If not, we've got a little announcement from Rachel. So is there any questions? Anyone? Okay, I'm going to invite Rachel up to give a little announcement before I close.
Thank you. I feel really inspired, like listening to you all. Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, I'm Rachel, and yeah, it was really interesting to hear about the wiggly paths, because mine's been quite similar. And I think I didn't know what I was doing growing up, and I could sort of see jobs that I wanted to maybe do, but I had no idea how to get there. And that's why I work with young people today. So that's a good segue, I think. Yeah, I run the youth programme here at Royal Museums Greenwich, which you can find out about by visiting rmg.co.uk/young people. And I wanted to do a bit of a plug about a youth collective opportunity that we've got coming up, which is for 16 to 24-year-olds. And it's a paid opportunity, so there's weekly workshops working with amazing creative industry professionals to plan a takeover event in July, which will be here at the National Maritime Museum, and it'll be an event full of music, food, yeah, and all the good stuff. So applications close on Monday, nothing like a deadline, and we would love just some more applications. Yeah, be really great if you had a look, and all the details are on the website. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rachel. So just like that, it's over. Oh, have you got a question?
Yes.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, number one, I wanted to ask Joe. I think that was really good what you decision that you made tonight. I know Mallory School.
Yeah.
I know they sounds good, but anyway,
Yeah.
okay. But I'm just saying you've done so well. And what
Thank you.
kind of gave you that drive that you need to do?
Do you know what it was? I think it was when I moved in with my auntie, just the fact that she didn't need to take me in initially. You know, she already had 2 kids. It was as difficult as it could get, you know, working, you know, tirelessly. And I just always wanted to give back to her. So stuff that I'd like to do for her now, I just like to just do anything I can for her. And we're originally from Sierra Leone, which one of the reasons my mum came over, because there was obviously war when I was born, so she wanted to get me out of there. And yeah, I know now it's a safe place. And ideally, I'm going to hope to build them a house one day back in Sierra Leone, God willing. So,
Yeah, of course.
This young man about level, what gave you the idea to use level and do it in a different word?
Yeah. So, levels, I liked the fact, because levels is like this different levels that you can aspire to. So I felt it was a strong name to use. And it's just, for me, it's like, people at different levels in their lives. And it kept it at a level where that your level's not the same as someone else's. So you strive at your own pace, and your level, like, that could be your success. Someone else's success is there, but it doesn't mean that you haven't been successful. So levels, hope that answers, yeah, the question. Thank you.
Love that. Any more questions? Don't be shy. Okay, I would like to say a big thank you to our speakers. Thank you so much. Could we give them a round of applause, please? And those at home, I hope you've enjoyed. Please send us some feedback. And yeah, we're going to close out now. So enjoy your Friday evening.